Melissa Langton, the director and owner of Accelerate. I work side by side with business owners and people leaders to help cure their HR headaches. Think of me as your people paracetamol. One of the best things about my job is the people and the network that I get to work with, those business owners who work tirelessly to build and grow their businesses. So I wanted to be able to access the wealth of knowledge within that network. So I've decided to present you with a series of videos and interviews with those very people in my network. I've entitled it Unlocking the Code to a High Performing Business, because every single person that I'll be speaking to has had or has a high performing business and contributes to that with their clients. Our first episode, we're launching with Tracy Newman from Bean Ninjas Australia. Tracy has started her business journey 10 years ago, and she's gone through many transformations. But one of the best things about my conversation with Tracy was her nuggets of gold when it came to her advice and learnings over that 10 years. But perhaps the most valuable one was self-care, which she has only just decided in the last 12 months that's a priority for her. So sit back, relax, and enjoy my conversation with Tracy and the many amazing guests and people that I have within my network, as I'm sure you do too. Enjoy. Good morning, Tracy Newman. How are you?
Good. Thank you, Melissa. Thank you so much for having me on your chat. I appreciate it.
I am so excited to be able to talk to you. And I say that a lot about my guests, but I'm genuinely really excited. One, that you've been able to make the time for this, but two, where are you right now?
Oh, I'm on the Gold Coast, right across from the ocean in Miami, and I'm here for a week for a me week,
That is
taking some time
fantastic.
away from the husband and children. So that's the
Yay!
beauty of working from the cloud, and I have to remind myself constantly that we can do this now. So
Exactly right. We have
it's okay to
permission.
take some time away. Yes.
I love people that walk the talk. So that is awesome. Thanks, Tracy. So I want to launch straight into it so that our viewers and listeners can understand who I'm talking to. So who is Tracy Newman and what is your amazing business?
So I'm a chartered accountant and tax agent, and the business that I'm part of it is called Bean Ninjas Australia. I started the business about 10 years ago under a different name, which was Cloud Counting. And then earlier this year, I merged that business with a business partner that's located here on the Gold Coast, and we took the name of her business, which is Bean Ninjas Australia. And what we do is we're a highly niched accountancy firm that specializes in e-commerce businesses. Preferably, they're already 7-figure plus businesses and they're looking to scale to 8 figures. So our sweet spot is very much probably a business that's been operating for there's no algorithm really. Sometimes you can go from 0 to 7 figures in a few weeks if you're selling the right product, but often they've been going for a year or two and they've intellectually appreciated at that point that their time is better spent on the front end of the business, and they're looking for support, a virtual CFO, so advisory, bookkeeping, and taxation services for their business.
Awesome. So any particular industry, I know you said e-commerce, but is there any particular industry in that space that you really enjoy working with?
Yeah, we've even niched from e-commerce down a little bit more. So our speciality is working with firms or e-commerce businesses that sell something. We accountants like to call those widgets, but generally there's a tangible product they're selling. And we seem to have, here in Australia at least, developed a real speciality around the shopping cart, which is Shopify. And we also work with another shopping cart called Neato, which is rebranded as Mero Post Commerce. So those tend to be the two most common sorts of clients that we're picking up. But Amazon has really just landed. Even though they've officially been trading here for a couple of years, we're not seeing a huge uptake yet. And we expect that that will become another platform that we're going to be very, very familiar with and supporting in the future.
Awesome. So, Tracy, I'm going to just assume, coming from an accounting background, going through university, you didn't necessarily think, right, I'm going to start an accounting firm based on e-commerce, specifically around selling widgets. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. I mean, I'm of a pretty old vintage these days. So when I started working in an accounting firm, I'm Canadian and I've been here in Australia for just over 20 years. We were very much back in the non-internet days even. I think
Mm.
email had just become a thing, but we didn't have computers at our desks at that stage. So we had a
Mm.
computer room and we had those big, 5 1/4 floppy disks, not even the three and
Yeah.
a half.
Yes.
And we would
Literally
go into the
floppy.
we
Like
would
they
go
were
into
actually
the
floppy.
yeah,
Yeah.
the computer room and put our diskette in and we would do some really rudimentary things, but everything was very much still pen and paper back then.
Mm.
So e-commerce wasn't even invented back then. So
Yeah.
certainly I wasn't aspiring to become an e-commerce speciality. And even working in the cloud, I think you could date back to less than 10 years ago.
Yeah. Absolutely. So why do you do what you do then? Why did you become an accountant? Why do you now specialize in a specific industry?
Okay, so why did I become an accountant? Probably my father is a chartered accountant, and he had a really exciting career where he was Canadian by birth, but then moved to England and worked for an investment house called Wood Gundy. So I knew it was a career that I could take me
Yeah.
different places, and that's proved to be true. Moving to Australia, uh, I always sort of had a real interest in financial figures and that side of things. So it was a really great fit. And the prophecy proved to be true in that when I wrote my chartered accountancy exams, I did really well. I got to work in a professional development area for a big five firm for a couple of years. And then I got seconded here to Australia. And that's how I moved out originally.
Mm.
Why did I specialize in e-commerce? Well, about 4 to 5 years ago in our industry, and this is probably true of yours as well, Melissa, there was a real push by our industry to niche or specialize within
Mm.
our profession to a profession. So
Yeah.
you'll often in the accounting profession hear about specialities such as, a trade accountant. So they would specialize in plumbing and electricians and, trade-based professions, or you might see a service-based accountant, which focuses on people that sell their time. So I was really moving through a journey of what would be a great fit for us. And the reflection side of things caused me to sort of think about what sorts of clients I most enjoyed working with. And without exception, the clients I really enjoyed working with were clients that were very technologically advanced. They were very pro cloud. They appreciated that it made no sense to do things more than once. They were looking for automated best practice solutions to put into their businesses. They didn't have to be educated about using Dropbox back at, that was one of the
Mm.
very first cloud
Yeah.
products that we all started using. Uh, so that was kind of a light bulb moment in that those were the people I enjoyed working with. And I'm generalizing, but often those people tended to be younger,
Mm.
maybe in their 20s. And from there, I picked up one particular client that was e-commerce based about 5 years ago, and just every issue that hit, no other accountant seemed to be able to resolve. It was just complicated. So we had inventory and foreign exchange and bringing product in from China and drop shipping and all sorts of really complicated issues. And it just came really naturally to me. It was something I enjoyed, and it seemed to be something I could figure out. And there was a lot of um, challenges associated with how data was flowing from system one to system two and system three. And I've always had a real background in data and databases. I can, program in SQL. So it just sort of all fell into place.
Mm.
And I decided e-commerce was, and back then it wasn't really picking it because we thought it was going to be the fastest growing industry sector or it was going to explode. It was just a natural progression. But fortuitously, all of those things have come to pass too. And there's really, look, uh, I'll have to say that I'm not certain because we've done no benchmarking, but I would guess there may be only 4 or 5 firms in Australia that are truly specializing in
Yeah.
e-commerce. So it's very much a non-competitive space right now, and we're really
Mm.
overwhelmed with work.
That's a great place to be. Thank you, COVID. So I'm sure that explosion that you're expecting sort of 5 to 10 years ago has happened now with COVID. Is that right?
It has, yes.
Uh,
So we meet people on a daily basis that are really looking to either buy themselves a job because they may be new parents or they've just come out of university, or they've heard stories that their friends have shared about how they've become, yeah, a millionaire overnight, so to speak. And so there's all sorts of interaction from people like that just looking to break into e-commerce. And we've sort of turned from just being traditional accountants and lodging business activity statements and doing bookkeeping to become full service advisors, because
Mm,
we don't meet really anybody that's in the chair, so to speak, that gets to see their clients and all of their challenges. And so we tend to just do this advisory piece, which is meet with a client, learn about their successes, and then anonymously transfer that information to the next meeting and say, well, have you considered this or tried that?
mm,
I like to call it the Wild West, because there is no degree or school around e-commerce, and what worked for you today won't work for you tomorrow. And
yeah,
they're real innovators and trying new different ways to put their product in front of people and sell.
that's amazing. So, what would be your tip then? Because you've clearly got a high performing business and you're working with high performing businesses. What's your tip?
I think my number one tip is be really good at one thing. I think that's true of e-commerce, in terms of what product do I want to sell. Well, look, if you're going to sell ink cartridges or um, hairbrushes, you're going to be, a really small fish in a really big pond, and you're going to have to compete on price, and you're going to have a lot of capital to throw into that business to get your fish swimming to the top of the pool above all the other little fish. Whereas if you're really good at one thing, maybe there won't be such a big audience for that. But now we're in this era of World Wide Web and cloud. You don't need a big audience, because
Mm,
it's not like you're putting out a sign in front of your office anymore. Your sign is the World Wide Web, and your audience is the world. So that would be my number one tip, and that's true of yourself, Melissa, in human
yeah.
resources, or any professional. Learn a couple of pieces of software, not all of them. Learn about one industry, and then just be really clear with your clients about what you're good at and what you're not good at. And don't
Mm,
compete, because there's work for us all. Seek out the people that you're best suited for in terms of your advisory services, and do the right thing by everybody else and refer them to like-minded people that have
mm.
chosen to specialize in their industries.
Yeah. So that's very much collaboration rather than competition analogy. Is that right?
Very much so. And that was something I learned. I've been running my business for just over 10 years now. And I think all of us, when we start a business, are in a mindset of competition, because our biggest challenge when we start a business is to find clients and find work and people to pay us to do what we want to do. And we feel like the only way to do that is maybe to convince someone that we have better skills, or that we're
Mm,
more talented than someone else. And that's sort of a competition
yeah.
mindset. And what I learned very early on the piece, and I can only speak for accountancy, is
Mm,
when you look at the adoption curve in terms of, on the outer ends of that curve, you might have 1 or 2%, and then obviously the critical mass is in that bell curve. So few accountants are truly working in the cloud and using best practice products, that you don't have to compete, because as soon as your clients realize that you're that progressed in terms of the automation you're using and the advice you're giving, they all want to work with you. And then it's less.
obviously, I'm all about putting the human back in human resources. So I wanted to ask you, what would be one thing that people out there wouldn't necessarily know about you, but you'd like to share?
Don't hit me with that.
Your impression of Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader was fantastic. So thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
back to my original question, what would be the one thing you'd like to share?
Well, when I was younger, just finishing high school and working to university, I was in the military. So I was a reservist, and I went through boot camp, and fired a C7 rifle and threw
Wow.
grenades, and yeah, sort of GI Jane for a few years there. So that's usually surprises people.
I've known you for something like over 4 years now. Had no idea. That's amazing.
Yeah, yeah,
Has
so
that
that's
set
pretty
you
cool.
up? Like, what? How has that impacted your life with that sort of background? Do you think?
Oh, I think it just sort of reminds you that you can do things that are outside of your comfort zone. I've never really been very athletic or sporty, and I think I was mentioning to you before the recording started. I've just sort of realized that I'm heading into my 50s now, but just because I'm not sporty doesn't mean I can't be healthy. So I've started
Mm,
running, and I think probably reflecting back to my boot camp days and remembering I did it then and I can do it now. It can be
yeah.
part of your life no matter how you're suited in terms of your preferences. And yeah, that's been
Yeah.
a really important reminder.
Yeah. And how's that impacted you now? Just, I mean, I guess that comes back to being high performing, isn't it? Looking after yourself.
Yeah, so I've had a real mental health journey over the last year, and I'm sure that's probably really topical for yourself and your profession. I was really on the verge of burnout last year for all sorts of reasons, but I was certainly overindulging in wine. There's no question, and had been over 5 or 10 years to try to relieve that tension at the end of the
Mm,
day. I was very unhealthy in terms of not exercising enough. I didn't have a business partner. I wasn't turning off the emails of an evening or a weekend. So I've completely changed that this year. And part of that process, back to the work side, is we went through a decision process that was really, really tough, where we released about a third of our clients uh,
mm,
when we referred them to other accountants. And that was a really tough process. But from my mental health journey, it was so important. And what we did is we just looked at our clients and we tried to move on the clients that didn't fit that definition set that I just mentioned to you about being
yeah.
e-commerce or the 7 to 8 figure, and really just wanting to move them to someone that would be a better fit for them, and just giving ourselves the breathing space to redefine the company. And as part of that process, we've been trying to push the clients to work with other staff members in my organization. And that's been uncomfortable. And just, as recently as late last week, we had a client let us know that they thought they'd like to move to another accountant because they really missed that personal connection. But that's just all about the growth journey on both sides. And you have to create boundaries and space. And I've really had that epiphany far too late in my business journey.
Oh, that's another look at that. Two tips in one. Thank you so much.
No
But it
worries.
all very much focuses on the fact that, especially being business owners, there's a real focus on ensuring that all of our clients are okay, that we help as many people as possible. But in the long run, it actually is completely not good for us as individuals and serving members of society. So thank
Yeah.
you for the reminder.
Oh,
So,
no worries. Just by way
Trace,
of a story, I had an email from a client on Friday. We've just been through a long weekend, as you know, Melissa, and I had an email from a client at 8:30 p.m. on Friday night, forwarding on an email that had been sent in February this year saying, "Can you call me urgently before the end of the day?" And so, in my opinion, that behavior is just not negotiable any longer, and
mm,
uh, and we all have to set boundaries. So, yeah.
absolutely. No, that's fantastic. So, in setting boundaries, I said this will only take about 15 to 20 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to end it on that fantastic note. Tracy Newman from Bean Ninjas, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate you having me.
Okay, thanks. Bye.